Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about Zelda 40th anniversary news and rumors that have just dropped. So we have a variety of things that have been going on as of late pertaining to the Legend of Zelda series. We know we're going to be celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary this year, however, Nintendo has not officially announced any 40th anniversary celebrations quite yet, and it is a little bit later than when they would have done this. However, we do have things that have already happened. We have the Ocarina of Time Lego set, we have the Ocarina of Time remake. That alone is kind of like a huge deal and clearly celebrating the history of the series. But we already know more is on the way because Hasbro has announced a new line of Zelda merchandising that's coming, and we've seen some already, so we're going to be getting into that. But also this is leading to perhaps some speculation, maybe rumor, about more that is coming in terms of Zelda figurines and such. But then also we're hearing about something else that is having to do with a special Zelda Switch 2 edition and a Pro Controller, and this has us wondering about what are Nintendo's plans regarding the anniversary overall. And then on top of that, we have some interesting words, some interesting choice words by Miyamoto regarding remakes, which clearly also has to do with the Ocarina of Time remake. So we have a lot to get into today. A couple quick disclaimers here. One, today is going to be a more quickly done video. I have a lot going on today, but I still want to talk about these things, so please forgive the very simple editing for this video, so just sit back, relax, and hear me out is basically what I'm asking here. But if you do find yourself enjoying the video regardless, or if you find yourself enjoying my other videos, I do have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers soon, and we're getting so close. So again, if you do find yourself enjoying my videos, I would very much appreciate you subscribing if you haven't already. So as I mentioned earlier, we already know that Hasbro has different toys planned for the Zelda franchise. Well, we already know a little bit about them. Hasbro was teasing that they would begin, the hero's journey begins tomorrow, which was earlier this week on July 21st, and then yesterday, we saw them reveal these right here. Link from Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda from Tears of the Kingdom, and Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom, and these are some pretty beautiful Hasbro figurines here. And here's some other angles. We can see all the different stuff. What's neat is that you can attach like different things. You can use the different hands there. Works for Ganondorf as well, it looks like, which is very cool. He has a sword. I appreciate that for sure. And then we have some footage of them right here. As you can see, you can adjust them in different ways. I really like how they have actually the setting from Tears of the Kingdom here, which is really cool. But yes, we can see them in motion or with footage to get better angles of them. And I would say these are some pretty cool figurines, and it has me wondering about what else is to come, because this is just the beginning. Game Over Jesse on Twitter quote tweeted images of these from Stealth and said, "Better be the first to get these before something better comes." Some people think he might be teasing something, but he also might just be speculating, which I do think makes sense, that there will be more things to come. Hasbro has already indicated that there will be more to come. This is just the beginning. This pertains to Tears of the Kingdom, but we know there are other Zelda releases on the way, such as the Ocarina of Time remake, which is interesting to me, because I do remember Special Nick, who we've talked about a lot of times on this channel, who has shown to have been able to put out some very good, reliable Nintendo rumors, such as Super Mario Galaxy 2 being remastered, Metroid Prime 4, the launch bundle of Nintendo Switch 2. He has said some things regarding Zelda. So he has heard that there will be amiibos coming. What those amiibos are, I feel like most of us can probably guess. It would have to do with the Ocarina of Time remake. I'm sure there's going to be figurines from Hasbro that also have to do with the Ocarina of Time remake. But something else Special Nick has discussed. Not only would the game have a pretty big budget, which as we've now seen, this was shared a while back, but we have seen that, yeah, the Ocarina of Time remake does have a very big budget. See, he talked about this back in 2024, actually, and so that's another point in Special Nick's favor in terms of his reliability, in terms of the sources he hears. But he has also talked about how there's supposed to be a limited edition Switch 2 console that will be Zelda-themed. And this is really interesting because, well, obviously that alone is really exciting, right? But there is something new going on here. So, Mike Odyssey said a Zelda Ocarina of Time Pro Controller might be coming instead of a themed Nintendo Switch 2. Bookmark this. So Mike is indicating that for whatever reason he believes that there's going to be a special Switch 2 controller based off Ocarina of Time. And interestingly, there's some corroboration here coming from Necrofelipe of Universal Nintendo. He's right. And I've already even seen the design. This is the teaser for Nintendeals. And here, Necrofelipe says, green at the tips, similar to that of Splatoon with gold. The Triforce crest centered between the buttons minus and plus. So both Mike Odyssey and Necrofelipe are saying there's going to be a special Ocarina of Time Pro controller. Hugo Gaming on Twitter, through some AI, was able to generate how the Pro controller would look somewhat. And this does look pretty good. It's not perfect. This is AI generated, but I do think it gives you a little bit of an understanding of how it might look. And I will say it does look pretty cool. I would certainly be open to this. Now, I would want to see something that's more Ocarina of Time themed specifically, if that's what we're talking about here for the Pro controller. Where I maybe want to put some pushback, though, is this idea that there wouldn't be also a Zelda-themed limited Switch 2 console. I feel like there's plenty of room for there to be both. That's more money to be made from Nintendo, so in my mind, of course they're going to do that. They've done that before. When Tears of the Kingdom came out, they had a controller and an OLED, so I don't think it'll be any different this time around, especially for the 40th anniversary. Not to mention, if I had to pick in terms of what I think is more reliable info, I have found that Special Nick has a more steady track history of getting things correct in reference to Nintendo. Not to say that Necro and Mike are wrong here, I just think it's probably both. But with this in mind, it then gets me wondering, well, when is Nintendo going to actually announce Zelda's 40th anniversary officially and start sharing all these things? A Switch 2 Pro controller, a Switch 2 themed console based off Zelda or the 40th anniversary or Ocarina of Time. When are they going to show these things? When will we start seeing amiibos for Ocarina of Time or whatever else is planned? When will we start seeing more merchandising about future projects, not just things that came out a while back? When will they literally just make the official announcement of the anniversary and announce all the things that are going to be part of it, such as these merchandising lines or concerts or games and so on? When are we going to see the movie? When are we going to learn more about the Ocarina of Time remake? Recently we talked about how Nintendo has this official slogan for the game, Reborn Across Time, which I think, quite clearly, is indicating this is more than just a one-to-one remake, and we've talked about that before. Some people disagree because they'll point out like a random tweet about Skyward Sword, how they use the word once for Reborn, but it's not about saying one random thing in a random tweet by one person from a social media team. It's about looking at the overall marketing message for Ocarina of Time, and across the board in various manners, in the Nintendo Direct itself, when being spoken about, in magazines, on the website, on all forms of social media, Nintendo's consistently using the wording Reborn. And they're not just saying Reborn. In the most recent case, they're saying Reborn Across Time. There's more to it here. There's a lot more of a focus on this messaging for the game. And so it's a big difference, and we don't have to look at how the messaging is, we just have to look at the teaser trailer itself. It's clear by looking at that, there's so much going on here that goes well beyond just a one-to-one remake. But we've talked about that before. Main point is there's a lot to show off, and you would think Nintendo would want to do that somewhat soon. Some people are thinking that maybe we'll have to wait all the way until September for Nintendo to do this. I'm not entirely sure, because it wouldn't just be about Ocarina of Time Remake, it would be about everything else for the anniversary. And if Ocarina of Time Remake is coming out in November, it's a very quick turnaround, that's a lot of marketing to do for that really big game. It's certainly doable, we've seen Nintendo do similar things before, like with Star Fox, but what about everything else? Everything else that they want to showcase for the anniversary, that also has to be advertised. So my thinking is that either things have to be spread out a little bit here, not all saved for September. I'm not sure what comes when, but I feel like there's gotta be something happening soon. I don't think we're gonna wait until September to literally get everything all at once. And I'm wondering about that more now because we're seeing things like from Necrofelipe and Mike Odyssey about apparently a leak of the design of the Zelda Switch 2 Pro controller. Now, of course, this could be made in advance, but it has me wondering if maybe some of this stuff is about to be shown relatively soon. We have had conversations that maybe Nintendo will decide to give us a big reveal for Ocarina of Time in August and not wait all the way until September. Now, there are rumors to the contrary from Nash Guido suggesting we'll have to wait all the way until September to see more of Ocarina of Time. We shall see. But with some of the things that have been going on this week, I'm just kind of left thinking that it's almost like tearing at the seams here. All these different Zelda 40th anniversary things that we need information on. I haven't really mentioned much of the movie yet, but we have seen various things from the movie as well. From the filming on set that got out a couple months ago. More might get out later. It does seem like Nintendo should probably tell us about that movie relatively soon. I expect we will get at least one trailer this year, probably in September, but potentially it could be sooner. So I guess my main point here is that there are probably big plans for Zelda's 40th anniversary, and we're just starting to see a little bit of that trickle out right now. Beyond, obviously, the Ocarina of Time stuff, which we've known about for a while already. But before closing out here, there's some interesting comments from Miyamoto that I would like to address and kind of share my own opinion on. So, in this Famitsu interview, Miyamoto said this regarding remakes. Some people might say there are a lot of remakes, but after 5 years, a lot of people have outgrown games and stopped playing them. Young people today don't have the opportunity to play games from 10 years ago. So remaking them to be more playable and releasing them again is a good way to meet the demand. Letting people know the original games also leads to future developments. So we've been actively pursuing that recently. I think there's a lot you could potentially extrapolate from this. We recently talked about the possibility of a Majora's Mask remake to follow up the Ocarina of Time remake. I do think, literally, Nintendo going and remaking Ocarina of Time does open the door for another ambitious remake in Majora's Mask, and I think there's going to be more to follow that. I think it's important for Nintendo to do things like this because it helps to bridge the gap between the other Zelda games. They likely have created a separate team to put this together. I'm sure there have been key members of the Zelda development team who have overseen this project, but also the main team behind 3D Zelda development has to be working on the next open-air Zelda. And so the overall indication here is that Nintendo has a separate studio working on this stuff, which I think ultimately means that they're going to continue to make more once this Ocarina of Time remake proves to be successful. And so that's a big deal, and perhaps that has a little bit to do with what Miyamoto says here, where he says letting people know the original games also leads to future developments. Because when Nintendo puts out the Ocarina of Time remake, people who haven't played that are going to be excited about it, and when they find out there's a sequel, they're going to want to play that as well, and that's another big game for Nintendo to put out there a few years from now. And then simply the point of just the idea of companies going back to remakes. I love remakes, especially when it's something along the lines of what we've seen from Capcom or Square Enix, or perhaps with what Nintendo will be doing with Ocarina of Time. Even with what we've gone with Star Fox, I much prefer this new version of Star Fox over the N64 version. I much prefer Resident Evil 2 remake compared to the original. I like these modern versions. They're far more playable, they're a lot more pleasing to the eye, and they do appeal to a lot more people. I think these are great games to put out there. I do think it's important to be able to revisit the original games from a long time ago, for sure, but I also think it's great to take the classics and renew them for a modern era. A lot of the times it becomes its own new experience, while still celebrating that original release. And so I totally agree with this. Whenever I hear about remakes, that does not disappoint me. I think maybe where some people grow concerned is that they feel like maybe remakes are taking place of new games. But I don't think that's the point, at least in the case of Nintendo. I think these remakes are facilitating more consistent releases, and in some cases, a little bit of a training up for some developers so they can make future games for the respective series. So in the case of the Ocarina of Time remake, this developer, whoever it is that's helping out, that's working with Nintendo on this, could then make more remakes, which will be great. Or in the case of Star Fox, perhaps this could be the beginning for other future Star Fox titles. Something like this happened actually with Mercury Steam and Metroid Samus Returns. That was a remake of Metroid 2, and then eventually they made a new Metroid Dread, and now we're hearing about Metroid Ravenous. And so remakes in a lot of ways are really great for training up developers and leading to more remakes or new games, and giving Nintendo, or just game companies in general, more consistent quality releases. Not necessarily taking away from the new installments, just more. But what do you all think? What do you make of all this latest information about The Legend of Zelda and what Miyamoto feels about remakes? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.